Akon, the world-famous artist who captivated the entire world and quickly rose to fame, became a household name in the late 2000s. Today, Akon is still famous, but for all the wrong reasons. He had promised Africa and the rest of the world one of the most ambitious projects we have ever seen. Named after himself, Akon City was supposed to be 3 times what Dubai is. Unfortunately, that never happened. What is the story of Akon City, and what exactly has he done for Africa? Welcome back to PST Megaprojects. Akon City is a $6 billion future city in Senegal, Africa, which was dubbed the African Dubai. It is meant to embody luxury, innovation, class, and a modern, fully equipped urban city. The project was meant to transform the way the world sees Africa completely. Instead of being behind when it comes to technology and infrastructure, African countries would no longer be classified as the poor third world nations of the planet. Akon City was already drawn up and promised something that was never done before in the history of Africa. The blueprints of the project were honestly insane. The fact of the matter is that the project actually is feasible. You wouldn't be surprised if China, America, or the UAE were building this city. Akon City would have been broken and divided into different sectors, each with its own purpose. The first sector would have been the African village. Just as it sounds, the African village is supposed to embody and boast African culture, taking pride in African history, culture, arts, and food. It would have included a luxurious resort of Africa, an African open bazaar, resort chalets, and African restaurants, all named exactly that. This sector would have been the heart and soul of Akon City, and is ultimately the idea that the entire project was sold on. The next sector is the entertainment district, which will feature a multifunction stadium for all purposes and events. A grand casino will be there to attract all kinds of tourists, as well as a grand mall, resort and spa, and a massive parking structure. Next is the tech district. It is supposed to feature next-level technology that isn't seen in the world, almost like a center of technological innovation and development. It would have been dubbed the Silicon Valley of Africa. It would have 4 grand buildings, named Tech 001, Tech 002, Tech 003, and Tech 004. The tech district would be crucial to the whole city, as the plan for Akon City is to be fully powered by solar energy. You can imagine how tech giants around the world would be racing to be included in that district if such a project was ever built. The Health and Safety District would offer crucial services to the city and would be broken down into residential buildings, the general hospital, an outpatient clinic, a police station, a fire department, as well as office buildings. An education district would feature 3 educational buildings or institutions, varying by education level. More residential buildings will be included in this district to accommodate teachers as well as dormitories for housing students. Another parking structure would be built there to support the high number of people there. They will also have their very own Hollywood, but the Senegal version, the Sennywood District. Sennywood District would feature 4 state-of-the-art filming studios so that African movies can finally reach the mainstream. I mean, they've already given us historical gems. Now imagine with 4 state-of-the-art studios what they can do.
Why are you running? Why are you running?
A giant media tower would be built as well as more residential buildings, office buildings, and a parking structure. To top off the masterpiece, a giant skyscraper named the Akon Tower will be built to serve as the mistletoe and tribute to the creator of the city, Akon himself. He might as well just build himself the Avengers Tower with a giant A on top of it. Now all of this has been in development for 4 years since the city was announced back in 2020. After tons of investments made, loans taken, and promises made, all Akon provided so far is a bunch of lies. This is what has become of the Grand Akon City, a single building block straight out of Minecraft. But what has happened with all the grand plans, and where did all the resources and money go to? It all comes down to a bunch of lies, corruption, collusion, a shady cryptocurrency that is looking like a scam, and the stealing of native land. A convict indeed. But to be fair to Akon, he truly does have the best intentions of Africa in his heart. He has done so much for the continent and still continues with his work, but there's just something about Akon City that doesn't make any sense. Before we dive deeper into the failed project, let us take a deeper look at Akon. Akon was seen as a reformed rap artist who turned into a business mogul with Africa in his heart. That's exactly what he did, completing many projects to help improve Africa on his quest to turn the continent into a utopia and better the people's lives. Growing up in a small town in Senegal, Akon, like many others in Africa, had no access to running water or power. When the sun set, that was it for the day. There was no more light, and local businesses all had to close shop for the day. At home, people resorted to candlelight or kerosene lamps to be able to carry on with regular tasks, such as cooking, cleaning, and studying. Such use resulted in the deaths of over 3 million people every year from fires and harmful fumes. Once Akon became a successful household name, he was determined to give back to Africa. He paid tribute to his home continent every chance he could get. He even sang for the 2010 FIFA World Cup, which was hosted by South Africa, is a song titled "Oh Africa." He began a project named Akon Lighting Africa, which was launched in 2014. The program successfully implemented solar energy in 14 different nations in its first year, an extraordinary feat that really was never done before on the continent. However, his strategies were questionable and raised questions as it was seen as unethical in the way he managed to get everyone on board. Akon specifically approached countries that were nearing elections and at first implemented solar panels in a village for free. Just looking at it from that perspective, it would seem that the country's president is allowing Akon to do good, to gain favor with the people for the upcoming elections. However, after solar energy is implemented in a certain village, the neighboring and nearby villages would begin to ask for their own development and why they haven't gotten the same upgrades. If the government doesn't oblige, then they lose favor with the rest of the country, and thus they are pressured into implementing the same for the rest of the country, and this time they have to pay. Of course, Akon's project remains to be the only supplier for them. So not only does he get paid, but one free project gains him the rest of the country. At the end of the day, though, the African communities actually do benefit. Whether his intentions were pure or not, his project ended up helping those African nations massively. Vendors were able to work longer under the streetlights, people now had light at home, and there was a decreased crime rate due to the increased visibility. By 2016, Akon had installed over 100,000 street lamps in 480 African communities and 1,200 solar microgrids, while creating over 5,500 jobs. Today, he has installed solar energy in 25 different countries in Africa. Almost 29 million people now enjoy the luxury of having electricity thanks to Akon. But how did he finance all of this? Well, Akon had taken $1 billion worth of solar equipment and infrastructure from China that was just sitting away in storage due to the US increasing taxes on solar equipment. In fact, Akon claims that China has done more for Africa than all the European countries combined did in 400 years. This statement can't be argued given that they were supplying Africa instead of stealing resources. But Africa is left in a lot of debt to China, $1.8 trillion worth of debt, which is exactly what China wants, so they can fall into a debt trap, which is something China has constantly been accused of doing intentionally to other nations over the years. Now back to Akon City. Akon was able to collect investments up to a staggering $5 billion. Senegal has also provided Akon with 3 square miles of land, and was even going to lay the foundations for the infrastructure for him. Now Akon City as a whole was just supposed to be phase 1 of a multi-phase grand plan to transform all of Africa that was to be implemented in the future. All of those cities would operate by using his very own cryptocurrency, Akon. The plan was also for the entirety of Africa to operate using Akon and have it as the official African currency. But why?
Okay. How much Akon do you actually own?
I mean, I am the bank.
I bet.
I got 1 million minutes.
Akon essentially owns the currency, and like he said, he is the bank. If the whole of Africa runs on it, he essentially holds limitless amounts of money and can do whatever he wants. Is it smart planning or is it just a scheme? Akon first did well on its launch, with the buyers reaching a 132% gain at its highest point. Naturally, the buyers held, but they were not prepared for what came next. Within a few short months, Akon crashed to a 60% loss. The people complained that they weren't able to return the currency to get their money back, and were essentially forced to hold it until Akon plummeted all the way down to a value of $0.0029, basically giving them a 100% loss. As for Akon City, it is a ghost town. The city only held 1 block of concrete with a sign boasting the entire project. But as of 2024, there were officially 2 buildings under construction. However, the first building was very basic and ordinary, nothing like what was promised in the project, which is supposed to be the future of high-tech urban cities. The second building does show some signs of potential, but that's about it. There is nothing else going on, and it seems like this project is going nowhere. Akon has stated that the pandemic is what caused the project to slow down and has pushed production by at least 2 years. But it doesn't make any sense because Akon announced the project as the pandemic was happening. Now, even if the bigger project is not completed, there is still one huge issue that was not addressed. The land that was acquired to build the city was essentially stolen. SAPCO took 555 hectares of land from the local people for this project, the equivalent of almost 1,372 acres of land, and the people were not compensated. The government and SAPCO believed in the project, believing that it would bring in a whole bunch of revenue and tourists to the country. But now, SAPCO has stated that if they do not see any real development towards the project within 1 year, they will terminate the contract. Akon had overpromised for this project and underdelivered. He had stated that his goal was to retire and be the king of Akon City. Everything that he has said raises suspicions, from his goals to the suspicious plans, to naming literally every single thing after himself. After all, Akon is only a singer. Why would the people, governments, and corporations trust in his word to something that he knows nothing about? The project was doomed from the very beginning, when everything was centralized around Africa. It's like the continent was used for everyone's personal gain once again. The main marketing tool for this project was that Akon City is being built in Africa, but it's not being built throughout the entire continent. It's just one country. We don't know for a fact whether Akon has been conning us or is actually planning to build the city, but it's not looking good. After all, Akon literally has a con written in his name. That is everything for now. Do you think that Akon City is actually going to be built? Or is it just a con by Akon to use Africa's name for personal gain? Please let us know what you think in the comments below. And if you haven't, please subscribe and leave a like for this video. Your support helps us continue our work. Thanks again for your support, and I will see you in the next one.